Get Sweaty with Leddy, a wellness program about pain management. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode. It's another chilly day here at Back Channel, and as you can see, we still don't have snow, but we do have winter at least. We've been making some serious ice. I was out here yesterday chopping the hole, and in a matter of 2 days, we picked up 4 inches. And I'm really excited about today's guest. She's a good friend of mine who lives in the Lake Minnetonka area, and she's got an amazing story. So let's hop inside and check it out. It is always nice when we can come in the hot room to start the day. And we're gonna start the day with a very special someone, Alexa Score. Say hello, Alexa.
Hello, happy to be here.
And yeah, I first met Alexa just from living around the lake here, having fun, sharing our affinity for all that is Lake Minnetonka and water sports. And then as I got to know Alexa, I found out she's a pro wakeboarder, she's a TV host, and also a cancer survivor living with cancer. So you've got a unique experience with pain on multi-levels, from being a wakeboarder and your incredible story with cancer. So Alexa, what brings you into pain?
Great question. Yeah, like you said, growing up, was a gymnast, was a wakeboarder, so obviously going through a lot of impact. So in general, just, the broken bones, sprained ankles, whatever it might be, was very familiar with pain. I was on a water ski show team where we'd build pyramids and all fall in a pile of humans and skis, and so I still have plenty of scars to show for it. Was no stranger to pain. Knew what it felt like to break a bone. But the biggest physical pain that I have felt in my life was when I was first diagnosed with leukemia. So before I was diagnosed, I started having bone pain. It felt to me like growing pains. People ask, how do you know it's inside your bones? My teachers, my friends, because it was starting to affect me in high school when I was 16. And I just said, I know it's inside my bones. It's a sensation that not many people probably feel. Bone pain?
Yeah, it's when you feel it in your bones, that's one of those sayings that sticks with you, and it almost sounds fairy tale like in a sense, but when you say it and you're feeling it, that's got to be tough to not get that reciprocation of, oh, really? Why?
Right. Or I understand, or I've felt that before. And it's funny that you say that, because I was a very passionate child. I still am a passionate person, but I was, very passionate. I felt things, the highs, the lows, really deeply. I felt them in my bones. So it was kind of ironic, like you said, when I started having bone pain, and I was like, I feel it in my bones, and I know that something is wrong. I had, known that for a long time. Fast forward, there were multiple instances where I had seen doctors, and they told me it's just from gymnastics. You're just experiencing, the aches and pains of teenage sport. And, I was very frustrated because it felt like no one believed me. And as a 16-year-old girl, you already have a little attitude going. So it's like this fine line between standing up for yourself and then them just looking at you as this bratty 16-year-old.
Right.
But it did come to a point where I was seeing an emergency room doctor because I had an accident and needed stitches in my forehead. And when I went to get the stitches taken out, my mom actually came with me, and she's like, you got to ask this guy about your bone pain. You have to. So I asked him, I said, I'm having this pain in my bones, and he kind of worked my legs around, and he's like, you're having muscle spasms, and I'll send you to physical therapy. And something inside me just snapped. And I just was like, that is not it, and I'm not going to physical therapy. And I remember him being like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, okay, girl. And I started bawling, and it was just this frustration, no one's believing me. I'm in so much pain. I would lay on the floor crying at night because of my bones. And my mom, being a pharmacist, thank goodness, said, why don't you just do a blood panel? Can you please just run a general blood panel and we'll get out of here? And he did. That night, he called me at midnight on the house phone, said, hey, you need to come in first thing tomorrow morning.
Because you hear him with his foot in his mouth?
Yes.
Yeah, I bet.
Totally. Like, hi. I still remember answering the house phone. I'm dating myself here, but hi, sweetie, is your dad home? Oh, he's not home. Well, you have to come in. You know, so kind.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, this is a different guy than the guy I just saw this afternoon. But went in the next morning, and he was still up from the day before. With bloodshot eyes. You could tell he was, he hadn't left.
He was going through it, right?
He was going through it, and he had to call these kinds of specialists in the city because I was from a small town. And what I had been telling everyone with this bone pain was I feel like my bones are sick. And I remember him sitting me down, kneeling in front of me, and he goes, your bones are sick.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I know.
What did that feel like? I mean, it had to feel, in a sense, like justification, but also just a devastating reality check.
Totally. So it wasn't until I came to St. Paul Children's Hospital and had a bone marrow biopsy that they actually said, you have leukemia, which is cancer of the blood and bone marrow. And it was, obviously first your brain kind of just freezes, and leukemia, what is that word? And I thought of pennies for patients and like kids with bald hair or bald heads and, things like that. But then it was this, like, I had known, like, thank goodness, like now we have an answer, finally, vindication, and now we can move forward. Like, okay, what's next? Now we can actually take action. So it was obviously scary, but more relieving than scary.
Right.
So fast forward, all these different, things that we talk about, but the bone pain actually had gotten worse than after I started treatment, and was taking, OxyContin, lots of OxyContin. And I was not aware of kind of what that was at the time. It's crazy though, because it didn't help.
Right.
It didn't help.
And that was my experience with pain pills too. It just didn't help. It just made me feel.
Yeah, basically.
And then you're, take more. You got to do more, and it's just like, no, this is not what my body is supposed to be ingesting. It's not supposed to go through,
Yep. I feel the same way. And it's like, what many pain medications do is they're just trying to block that pain message from going to your brain. But when you have that much inflammation, so what my bones were doing is the soft tissue inside the bone marrow was expanding and pushing on the hard, crusty part of my bone.
Oh, man. So
I would lay in bed at night and just pray that my bones would break, because that, like, felt like relief, or like that in my head would be relief. And, I would run out of tears and just moan at night. And my sister and my family just in agonizing pain themselves, watching me just like, because I didn't complain as a child. So, when I was in that much pain and just distraught, it hurt my family too, for sure.
Yeah, and they're helpless. There's nothing that they can do. And, as a growing young adult, we all need our sleep to grow. Mm-hmm. And you have something that's just eating at your whole entire body, and you can't have any form of recovery from sleep.
Yep.
That's just a double-edged sword.
And, when I started treatment, I was so weak. There was a time, probably my scariest moment, when I couldn't even sit up in bed. Oh, I was spending, 20 to 22 hours a day laying in bed, but I couldn't sleep. So it was just like prison, and you're stuck with your thoughts. And then, the morning I couldn't sit up, it was just like terrifying. You're just stuck in your body and in pain, and there's no escape. There's nowhere to go. You can't sleep. You can't, think. You can't eat. You can't do anything. So being in that amount of pain is like it's sobering in a way, because you kind of get to this point where you're like, there's no way I could feel more pain than what I'm feeling. Like there's no way.
Man.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting here, you're feeling all this pain. You have at least a diagnosis now. What's the next step for you? Where does that trajectory go? Because you've been essentially just denied proper care in a sense by just neglect.
Right.
And now you have this uphill battle as a young girl.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. So the kind of leukemia that I was diagnosed with, there are a number of different leukemias, blood cancers. My leukemia is called chronic myeloid leukemia, and the average age of diagnosis is 65. So most people think of leukemias as pediatric, which many of them are, but this one is actually typically seen in people much older than I was. So I was very fortunate to be sent and matched with a doctor who was very educated on, or educated himself quickly anyways, on my kind of leukemia. The first line of treatment was a bone marrow transplant, which at that time and still would have changed my life completely, entirely. I would have spent, probably 200 days in a hospital bed, and then every other day in and out of hospital bed, and then it's a pretty brutal procedure. And then after that, you're living with graft versus host disease and many different side effects from that procedure itself, if you survive and if it successfully gets rid of your leukemia. So multiple doctors were saying, all right, schedule your bone marrow transplant. I went in and did my consultation for that transplant, and the man who did my consultation with looked me in the eye and said, you will die unless you have a bone marrow transplant.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Super heavy. Very, very heavy as a 16-year-old. And for better or worse, I was very stubborn. So luckily things like that, I took them with a grain of salt. I was like, that's what you think, dude. But it was real. This guy's saying it, and he said it with such conviction that it was kind of gross. It almost turned, it was almost helpful, because I was like, if you would have said it gently or with compassion, probably would have taken it in.
But the way he said it was almost like he doesn't care about you,
right? Right.
You're just another statistic that is going to fall right in line with how he sees this disease and cancer going.
Exactly. And almost just telling me that there's only, there's one option, and you're right, you just fall within this category, and so this is it. Like I said, the first doctor that I'd met with, Dr. Yoav Messenger, I'll give him a little shout out, he said, there's this new drug on the market. We don't know if it'll work. We don't know how long it'll work. We don't know long-term side effects, but I think it's worth trying. I think it'll at least buy you time. Medicine advances rapidly, but he just knew with how active I was that the bone marrow transplant was going to kill my spirit if it didn't kill me.
I was going to say, it was just take your soul away.
Exactly.
So what next?
So, I was fortunate. Both of my parents were pharmacists. They could get, a little bit more educated on the drug itself, probably more than the average person. And they left it up to me. What do you want to do? And I wanted to try that medication. I really trusted this first doctor. And I think that is so huge. People, when they're first diagnosed, I get people reaching out to me all the time, like, what's your biggest advice? And it really has nothing. A lot of times I'm like, first and foremost, you have to find someone that you believe in and trust, because there's not just one answer.
No.
There is such a range of options, and we are led to believe that, this, and it's the same as what I was told. Nope, bone marrow transplant, go. But then if you find the right person who's like, well, actually, there might be another option for you. Finding someone you trust, getting educated, getting second opinions. So I was very lucky, to have met this doctor who I just appreciated and had so much chemistry with, and I trusted him. So I started this relatively experimental drug called Gleevec. It's an oral chemotherapy pill. You take it once a day, pill form. It's a targeted therapy. So instead of killing all fast-growing cells like traditional chemotherapy, it targets the cancer cell itself. And I got super sick from that drug. When your blood is 95% cancer, and then this drug came in and started working really fast, I got super sick. And that's when the bone pain got so bad that, It went on for weeks. And this is in the middle of my gymnastics season. I was a junior in high school, and we're supposed to be the best team in school history. And we had all grown up doing gymnastics. And it was just, the timing of it all was just like stranger than fiction. But that's when it got to the point where the pain itself, quality of life became an issue. The medication was working. We were concerned it might be working too quickly. That's a thing you learn. And, pain management, we couldn't find anything that would work for my pain. And, my dad had been requesting that maybe we try a steroid. And my doctor was like, I'm afraid the steroid will actually ruin her bone marrow. A lot of intricacies there, obviously, that, I maybe don't have all the technical jargon, but it got to a point where it was like, man, we might have to do this bone marrow transplant because you can't live like this. And the night before our sections gymnastics meet, I had been trying to go to gymnastics practice. Even I'd make it to school for maybe an hour a day, and then I'd try to go watch the girls at gymnastics practice for 30 minutes or whatever I could do, just sit there in my pajamas. And it was the night before the sections gymnastics meet, and my dad was in his pharmacy, and he was like thinking, my daughter's gonna die unless she can compete or be part of this. It was just such a big thing at that time. And he went to grab his cell phone to call my doctor. And when he went to grab his phone, the doctor, Yoav, was calling my dad. And he said, how do you want me to write the script for the steroid? Because we had been in constant communication with my doctor, and it's like, she's dying. Her spirit's dying, we see it. And as he was picking up his phone to call him, the doctor was calling. He said, I'll write it. We have to try it. And my dad came straight to gymnastics practice, gave me some prednisone, which is obviously not the legal kind of steroids. And he carried me to bed at 6 p.m. He woke up the next morning. He was downstairs working out, and he heard me running down the stairs. And it was like...
Wow.
Yeah. And when you're in that moment, you don't realize the gravity. All of a sudden, I'm just
living life.
I'm back again. And my dad called my gymnastics coach, and he said, Cindy, if she wants to compete today, let her compete. My coach was like, what the hell are you talking about? She can't even stretch on the mat. She's dying. And he's like, you got to trust me. And so I went. They let me compete. I won the balance beam at sections. I got 4th place in floor. I qualified for state individually, and first time in school history, we qualified for state as a team. It was just this crazy story, but it all comes down to my doctor was like, nope, her soul's dying from pain. And if she doesn't compete, she's going to lose her spirit. And that's just such a big part of the whole holistic health thing.
The power of positive thinking, just putting the right things out there. I don't think it's a coincidence that your doctor was named Messenger, because he literally was the messenger of good news, right?
That's true.
And to avoid this serious invasive procedure, to opt for something that's less invasive, that's always going to be the way to go. Always get second opinions, third, fourth, depending on the severity, and go for the least invasive thing first. See what you can do. Start thinking positively.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing. And you look at that.
Well, my life would just be so dramatically different without that. In contrast, years later, I caught wind of this girl who was the exact same age as me. She was diagnosed with the same kind of leukemia at age 16. We were 4 months apart in diagnosis. She's from St. Cloud. So we had the exact same trajectory.
Yeah.
She went to Mayo Clinic. Her parents asked the doctor, if you were us, what would you do? They said bone marrow transplant. She did it. She was a 3-sport athlete. Destroyed her bones. She never ran. She was a track athlete, could never run again, could never do impact sports again. It changed her whole life. And she had tried Gleevec first and got sick, like I did. And I said, well, did they ever tell you that the side effects might go away or there might be other options? And she's like, no. We just went bone marrow transplant because we trusted the doctors, And I feel for her. It was literally a parallel of what my life could have been and what mine was. And this is when I was in the height of my wakeboard career, speaking to this person, I'm like, this would have never happened.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, it's very real.
Wow, to have that, that mirror image to compare your situation to, that's really got to tug at the soul strings.
For sure. I mean, obviously there's some guilt that is involved with hearing things but it's just so powerful to know, wow, we really did the right thing and it could have been vastly different.
Yeah.
Had we not followed our instincts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I'm gonna throw some logs on this fire. Let's keep this going here, because it's probably gonna heat up as we continue to dive into your story.
Sounds good.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Well, now that it's officially sweaty in here, we are rolling.
We're
and
rolling.
Yeah, let's get back into it. As you're telling your story, what I'm hearing a lot of is just the necessity to live your life, and having something such as gymnastics and that connection with all of your friends, that's what got you out of the doldrums that are chronic pain, in a sense, right? And it's not necessarily you're dealing with chronic pain, but it is pain that was with you for a very long time. And that's kind of what I deem chronic pain, is pain that's everlasting, in a sense. But your drive to be with your friends, to live your life, that was almost as much of a remedy as the medication that Dr. Messenger told you to take.
Yeah, and kind of to touch back on the chronic thing, I still am on this medication. So it's something, I have to deal with leukemia every single day. So whether it's physical pain or mental pain or financial stress or whatever it might be, it is chronic because it's not going away. But like you said, in my darkest moments, I thought about death like it was a thing in those times. And reflecting back, I was never afraid. I never wanted to beat cancer because I was afraid to die. I wanted to live. So there's a different driving force. Those are two very different things, being afraid to die or just wanting to live, this insatiable passion for, I want to get back on the water. I remember, in those dark moments, I would think about wakeboarding. I would think about my ski team, my water ski team. I would think about gymnastics. Obviously that was first and foremost, but that desire to live was medication. And that is something that since that day has really been my greatest medication, my greatest strength. We didn't know how long the medication would last or continue to be effective. A lot of people become resistant to this drug within 5 years. A lot of people within 10 years. I've now been on it for 18 years.
Wow.
So pretty incredible that in itself. But kind of going on with this mindset where it was I didn't know what my timeline was. So I'm just going to live. And there were many opportunities for me, actually every single day, to use cancer as an excuse. Whether it was I don't want to take this test, or I don't want to go to this workout, or I just don't want to do this. But I find that the only time our ailments define who we are is when we use them as an excuse.
Yes.
And I've got the best excuse ever. I have cancer.
Yeah.
But the minute that I use that, then that defines me. Then that does hold me back. And obviously there are limits to that. If you can't get out of bed because of pain or whatever, I that's a thing. But mentally, when you use that as an excuse to not do something, that's when it defines who you are. So I've taken a lot of pride in just not having a victim mentality and defining my life what I want it to be versus it being cancer.
Yeah, that's amazing. 18 years on this. You're essentially the poster child for this path towards living.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's very humbling. I did a big campaign with Novartis. I obviously have mixed feelings about the drug industry, for sure.
But it's like surgery. It's a last resort type thing. It's not what you were striving for. In your situation, it was the least invasive process to try to get better.
Right. Totally.
And, you know, with using that in success, now your other medication is sunlight. It's the outdoors. It's the natural things that make you better.
Right.
You know, they should probably put that on this, you know, take this once a day, spend 4 hours outside also.
Yes, with sunlight, with exercise, with healthy thinking, with eating, and friends. Friendship is so powerful, and family is so powerful. Wanting to spend time with my sister and my best friends was another just medication for me. It still is, every day. And a lot of people don't choose that path, and it's really sad for me to see, being in chat groups and, you know, these online groups where it's just constant. It's an area where people can air their complaints with other people who understand, but when you frame your whole mindset like, woe is me, it will affect your whole journey. And it is a choice. And unfortunately, it's kind of an epidemic of people who feel powerful when they're getting sympathy. And I think having pride in yourself can replace tenfold any sympathy that you ever receive from anyone. Obviously, support is important, but having pride in your own self, not having to post it on social media, just knowing what you've accomplished and what you've gone through, true pride can replace any sympathy. For 18 years of sympathy online, it's like, you know, just being proud of myself and knowing what I've gone through. I don't really have to, I'll share it when it's helpful,
Right.
But that's not the first line of filling my cup, I guess.
Wow, that's amazing. And I do think, you know, like, you have an incredible social media persona, and it's so fun to see you doing all the things that you enjoy. And, you know, yeah, you aren't leaning into the woe is me type thing. You know, you're not trying to let that define you. It's your successes that define you. And that's probably the most just pure beauty that there is out there, you know.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, watching you do backflips or 360s, or, you know, talk to professional athletes and do all this. You're curating this story of complete success, and, you know, like, who wouldn't want to be you?
Well, that's very kind and humbling. Obviously, you know, I am fortunate, but it's that, you know, believing in yourself and being proud of yourself and battling. Like, you know, we come up to tough decisions every single day, whether it's to have the apple or the candy bar, or whether it's to go to the gym or not, or whether, you know, they get bigger, whether it's to retaliate against this person I don't like. Like, there are decisions every single day, and making those choices when no one's watching is really what makes the biggest difference, I believe. And, you know, going back to the medication, I was incredibly fortunate to meet the man who developed this medication.
Wow.
And he's a badass in himself. He was not a researcher. He was a physician treating people with my disease, and he was frustrated with people dying. No, I'm not just going to send them to their deathbed, or, you know, because for many people, the bone marrow transplant can't happen if you're far enough along, if the cancer's progressed far enough. You have to be healthy to get to transplant. So he went into the lab.
You got to be healthy to get transplanted so they can kill you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Make all the money. At that time, I remember, the procedure was going to cost over $1 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, crazy. To put things into perspective.
Wow.
But he went in, he said, I'm not going to treat this cancer. I'm going to find out where it's happening, and I'm going to just stop that from happening. So he did it. Fucking crazy. Like, absolutely insane for someone to go in and, like, it's that easy kind of thing. You're like, dang. Fastest approval in FDA history. This drug was on the cover of Time magazine. And I had this opportunity to meet him. He was doing a keynote in Orlando. I was living in Orlando, and him and the CEO of IBM were doing 2 keynotes. And I got to meet him right before he went on stage. And he sat down. He said, oh, no, I know everything. I've looked you up, and I know where you're from, and I know what you're up to. And he said, you're the reason I made this medication. I didn't make this so people could just keep going on living in misery. And, you know, he has plenty of patients who are like, I'm miserable, you know. I made this so people could go pursue their passions and live a full life. Wow. I didn't just want to keep people alive. There's a big difference. And that's probably the most humbling thing that you could ever hear, you know.
So you really are the poster child for this.
Right,
Wow.
yes. And so to hear the person that saved your life saying, thank you for going out and doing what I intended this drug to do. That's like, there's nothing else I could hear. There's no fame, there's no fortune that could feel as good as hearing that.
Yeah, that's a mic drop on life right there.
Yeah.
And this is, that might be the single greatest moment for anybody, and I'm sure that is one of the single greatest moments for you, but just the fact that you continue to parlay so many great moments into your life by being a positive person, engaging, doing all the things that you should be doing, not just, trying to blame cancer for whatever. Right. Like, it's just, right. I just, it's so fun to watch you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're all a work in progress, and I continue to, there are struggles that we all deal with, and I'm always trying to better myself by really hearing things like that from you really mean a lot to me, and I hope I can continue to just keep kicking this can down the road.
Yeah,
and
sure.
having fun doing it. Like, that's number one. Just have fun.
When, not to change the subject, but, you still compete in, or you wake surf and wakeboard at a high level. Mm-hmm. Do you ever have like a bad fall where you might just get hurt and it is like a resemblance of the bone pain that you had before? Or is that bone pain, like, you're not feeling that bone pain anymore? Is it something different, or what is it like?
So I did break my tibia post cancer, and like that bone pain from breaking a bone is similar, but it's centralized, right? Like I could feel that in my femur and in my tib. When I was having that bone pain, it was exponentially worse, and it was in my every bone, every joint of my body.
Wow.
So there are times when I oftentimes think back to those moments, because I would remember I tape ice to my knees as tight as it would go at night, thinking, oh, it'll get in there.
The pressure's going to counteract the pressure of the bones pressure, right?
Yep, exactly. And it would help. So in gymnastics, I would tape my knees and my shins, and people are like, you're going to lose a foot. Like, that's better than what I'm feeling. It was, to answer your question, similar pains, nothing close to what the bone pain was.
That's amazing.
I did have bone pain return like 6 months after the first prednisone that we tried, and I did one more round of steroids, and for the most part since then, in 17 and a half years, I've never had excruciating bone pain, just like little minor achy stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess, what about the mental side of it? Are you, like, do you, you can't let your injury or your history define you, but does it creep into your mind at any point in time?
You don't ever get a day off. There's no vacation from a chronic disease or pain or whatever it might be. It's every day, and that's where it wears on you, right? You can't just go to a resort in Mexico, as we wish we could, and everything goes away for a couple days. But, the financial struggle, like, I've been paying my own medical bills since I was, in my early 20s, and have to deal with health insurance, and that can be really stressful. There have been times in the past where, I've broken down, and it's been really hard, and there's no end, right? It's like, I'm going to be dealing with this forever. And, I have to think about having children. That's a whole nother complex thing. If I want to do that, there are certain steps I have to take, and it's just constantly on your mind. Fortunate or not, for me, I've been living with it for longer than I haven't been living with it.
Wild.
Wild. Especially in adulthood. So it's like, I don't even know what it's like to be like, I have people who are like, I haven't been to the doctor in 3 years. I'm like, I go every 3 months just for my cancer.
Wow.
Not if I sprain an ankle or if I get sick or, it's just something that I live with, and you have to embrace it as a part of who you are and what you've grown into. So I just kind of consider it's a part of me.
Yeah.
But it isn't me.
Yeah.
All me. It's part of me.
Well, now that I'm just a puddle over here.
If I'm sweating, no, it's hot.
Yeah,
because I do not sweat much.
She is a confirmed freeze baby, she told us. So, getting her in a sauna for an interview is going to be pretty easy. But when you get to the point of sweating, that's when you know that a freeze baby has maxed out. Yes. So let's take this freeze baby to a frozen ice hole.
Let's do it.
All right. All right. The wind is no joke here this morning. It's really adding about 5 negative degrees to the situation. We're hovering around. I don't even know where we're at right now.
I actually dug out the...
Chop the hole for me.
the
Thank
hole
you.
again.
I want to know where
It's
we
nice I
are.
don't got to worry about breaking it with my foot here today. So thank you, Isha.
This is like very challenging. Just FYI.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Here you go. Good job. Yes. Slow breaths.
I think I have about 15
Would you like
seconds in me.
Bite of my ice. Oh, should have taken that out. Get out, yeah,
I'm
go
the
for
worst.
it.
Okay. Okay.
All right, I'm going for a little dunky here today. This will be dunktastic.
Oh. You're my hero?
Yeah. A little quick one on account of that wind here. Oh, man, yeah. Gotta get in before the hair freezes. Follow us.
Let's go. Back to the beach.
Well, it sure does feel good to be back in the hot room here. How did you take your cold plunge, Alexa? First one of the year.
First one of the year. Admittedly, I am not a talented cold plunger. I'm trying to enjoy it, but that's, it's a challenge and we push our bodies. And so I hated it, to answer your question.
I like it. I love the honesty. Yeah. It's not, it is acquired skill. I can't imagine somebody that would, the first time they just go and run a mile for their very first time, they're probably not going to just be like, yes.
Right.
Maybe they got a little runner's high out of that. Maybe they are going to enjoy that. But for the most part, that first experience can be pretty daunting. And
Right.
yeah,
It's a challenge.
but I'm glad you went for it. You took it like a champ.
Thanks.
It was a little breezy out there, and even though we don't have snow and the sun is shining, it's still cold.
It's cold. It is cold out there.
But now we're feeling good.
Yes.
And going, keeping on the trend of feeling good, your story just really demonstrates how important it is to be an advocate for yourself. You said that you have now been living with leukemia longer than you hadn't. Mm-hmm. So, you are the expert. You know what's going on with your body, and if there's going to be something else that would come up later on in life, you are in control of that. It's not you relying on someone to tell you what it is based on their previous experiences. And I think that's so important for everyone at home to understand, is that if you're not feeling right, go and check it out. And if you're not satisfied with that result, get a second opinion.
Right.
Get a third opinion.
Right. It's super important to trust your body and be aware. And as we're sitting here, I'm thinking about that because, I knew there was something wrong. I said my bones were sick. That's what it felt like. But maybe people aren't getting in touch with their bodies enough. Maybe people aren't doing things like this. Having these extreme hot, cold, whatever it might be, meditation, just disconnecting and listening.
Yeah.
For a minute. Maybe, people have to do that before they can actually listen to their bodies and trust their gut. Mm-hmm. Because for me, a lot of it is, being a self-advocate then when I knew very little about medicine, but I knew something was wrong. And since then have truly become an expert at my disease. So I don't need a doc. I go see an oncologist every 3 months, but truly I've been through a million of them and they're like, you know yourself, you know how to manage this disease. You sound very educated. We just have to run the labs, and write prescriptions. But when something else is going on inside my body, I'm very acutely aware of where it is, what it is, and the right questions to ask. And that doesn't mean I'm a hypochondriac. We're going to have aches and pains.
Totally.
That is going to happen. And you got to, battle through some of that, but truly being an advocate for yourself and educating yourself. Yeah. Whether that's getting to know yourself or getting to know your disease or, whatever else that is, truly just diving in and maybe not just reading things for what they are face value, but exploring them. Right.
Absolutely. And, just getting in tune with your body. I mentioned it in a previous episode, but, don't mask how you're feeling. Maybe you're not taking pain pills, right?
Yeah.
But maybe you are relying on alcohol or some over-the-counter stuff or something else that is creating noise in your body that is not allowing you to hear what's going on.
Totally.
Like if you're driving in your car and you're blasting the radio, that might all sound good, right? But if you turn that radio off and you hear some clunk, 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 now you're paying attention. You're like, oh shit, like what's going on? Like turn the noise down in your world to be able to hear what your body is trying to tell you. And if it's
or your mind, it's good for emotional pain too.
Yes, yeah, it absolutely is. It's just so important to listen and to be in tune. And I'm so glad that you are.
Thanks. Me too.
Yeah, and it's part of what makes it's put me in this position is being in tune with myself. Because if I wasn't in tune, then I would just be wallowing away trying to figure it out like everybody else.
Right.
And we're here to give you another option.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for empowering me.
Yeah, no, thank you for being you, coming on out here. I give Alexa Score a follow. She is a treat to watch on Instagram and Facebook and all the things, all the TV stuff. So best of luck to you, and we'll see you on the water very soon.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. See you soon, guys.